Hey guys, guess who's back? All right, so I took some time off. I took some few minutes or so. Then I'm back to just quickly record this last video in the series because I want you guys to have a comprehensive knowledge on what we've been discussing. So I promised we're going to look at creating our own personal components, right? Based off this guy over here. This guy basically re- scans components. So we're going to do this. How are we going to achieve this? We're going to achieve this by creating some. Let's create a package called my service. Then I'll create some set of services. I'll just say, I'll just call it a component service, like the basic things you always use, right? Component service, right? I'll label it add component. Then I'll also have another one. Okay, I didn't spell this correctly. Label this component. All right, then I'll call it my service. Okay, how do I call this? Okay, components. So because I want to label it as service. Okay, so let me just give it some service. Some service. This will basically carry the at service annotation, right? Um, there is also another. You're aware there's the repository, right? There is the repository. There is the controller, right? All these guys carry the components. You might say, "Are you sure?" Okay, let's confirm. Let's confirm. Let's create a controller. I'll just create everything in the same place. Let's just call it my controller. My controller. Let's just place this the controller, and I label it as rest controller, right? Or the controller, right? If you get to open this up, you could see this guy carries a controller. Open the controller carries the components, right? I hope this is starting to make sense now. Now, a quick question somebody might ask me, this is an interview question. What is the difference between controller and rest controller? Right? Rest controller basically is a rest, right? It gives you the JSON and the likes, that JSON, XML based on your configuration, right? What about controller? Controller basically is more of when you're dealing with, probably have a backend and you have a UI you're connected to, right? So you have a UI connected to in the same application, right? For a coupled application, not decoupled, but a coupled application, right? Where you need to use a model view controller, you use the controller. But the REST controller is an alias for the controller and for the controller and response body. Because if you're the type you've developed Spring for a while and you discover that you're using controller and you need to return something like a JSON, you would add at response body. Now that is what this guy does for you. So this already gives you the at response body with the controller. So if you open it up, can you see? Controller, response body. I'm not going to explain this anymore because you guys already know. Now it's starting to make sense to you, right? That Ezekiel mentioned that okay, when I have an annotation, I should look out for these things. You know what this means? This should be on a class. This exists in runtime. This is for JavaDoc, right? So that is why you have this. So REST controller is just an alias for controller and response body. So most times they bring all these annotations together to create one single annotation to solve a particular problem. All right. So now you know. Now, what makes this scannable also? If you check the component is component, right? I'll just say component is component, right? I can't add anything here. You see, it only has indexed. So meaning this is actually indexed, like I mentioned in the previous video, right? That index basically is just the same thing like what you have on a database to ensure that it loads up faster, right? So that is why we have index here. So meaning all your beans loads pretty fast, right? So let's check out service also. Service is also an alias, so to say. So should I say it's somewhat like a schematics, right? So as to keep things separated. So if I to open this up, you see this also contains component. If you check out repository also, if you create something and we label it as repository, let me just create something, my repo, let me just call it repo. When I open repo and I label it as repository, a repository. Now open this up also. You see, this also contains art components, right? If this is making sense for you, see, this is alias for component class. So all these are all aliases. They are all alias for components. You check this out as this guy Open this guy up. Alias for components. They are all components, right? They are all components. I can start this up. I believe I've removed all the details. Yes, so I can start it up. Everything works as usual. Now, I'm sure those who are familiar with Spring are getting to know Spring, right? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just create a service in here. Now, there is something called the command line runner. I'm going to extend the command line runner to be able to just post some init message, so to say, so that I don't have to create a controller to make a call and call the service and the likes. So for the component, I'm just going to just major on this. I've already been able to prove that this is a component, this is a component, this is a component, and it's a component. So within this component, let me just implement command line runner. And command line runner, I just want to post something, so I'll just override this. So I'll just say component service is running, right? Component service is running. So if you're curious enough, I could do this also. Command line runner. Right? And I'll just say, so I think I'll rather use at SLF4J, since this is how to you add at SLF4. This guy here is the same thing as saying logger factory, logger, where are you? Logger the factory, I think logger factory dot how is this spelled now? Logger factory equals to minutes, 1 minute. I can't remember why the syntax is escaping me, so I have my logger factory dots. Supposed to be a dot, right? Let me just confirm. 1 minute. Let me just see. So skipping just 1 minute. Let me just confirm this. So let's open this up. So logger factory. So it's a way to basically just create a log. All right. So let's do this. All right. Yeah. So I think I was missing the syntax. So I think it should be PSFS. So that's basically just public static final. So if I create a logger equals to a logger factory dots. Yeah, it's what I need. Then I just pick the class and my controller.class. So this is the same thing as this. So rather than creating this, you could just add this. Then as runtime, this will be auto created for you. All right. So I'm just gonna leave this. I'm just gonna comment it out so that you could understand. So here I'm just gonna say log.info. Then I'm running in between. I'll just say my controller class is running. So this is fine. So this is fine. So let's come in here. I'm going to change this to a log.info. Log.info. Then I'll add in my SLF for J. All right. So repo also, I'll just implement command line runner. Same thing. So here I'm going to change to at SLF4J, right? So this is this. All right. So what is changing here? Let me confirm. Yeah, this guy should go. All right. So I'll just say repo is running. Change this on to log.info. All right. Then what else? And I think I have this. So implement command line runner. Then I basically have the same thing. Right, so take this guy off. Then I just implement. Yes, so I have at some services running. I'll just add log.info. All right, so at SLF4J, right? At SLF4J. All right, so that's basically so. So let's just start it up and let's look at the logs. So if I do this, you see everything works, right? Because they are all components, right? They are all components. Now you know how it is working, right? Because I've showed you that the Spring Boot application basically has this component scan that looks for all the components. So if you're using the alias, like if you're using this component, which is the base, or you're using this controller, REST controller, which contains controller and response body, and the controller contains the component, it will find it. If you're using the repo contains component, it will find it. The service itself, which contains component, it will find it. So that is how it is found. Now, the question then arises, so how do I create my own component? Beautiful. Very good question. So that is pretty straightforward, right? It's, you could have probably guessed it by now. It's typical, or should I say, it's exactly what you've noticed. So I'm just gonna steal this, and the way it is, I'm just gonna steal this as it is. I'm gonna create a package, call it annotations. Then I'm gonna create something called Z. Let's call it Z components. Aha. So now you know it's different. So this is, my nickname is Z, so I'm going to just call it Z components, right? I'm making that interface, right? I have this. I'm going to make this art. Did you notice? Because there was no art here, this was complained about. Adding the art here, this makes it typically work. Now, the magic that makes it available to be, in order for it to be found, should be what? I'm sure somebody have guessed it, at component. With this, I can then place it, use it on any service, on any class, so to say, and this will be discovered by the IOC. Let's test it out. I'll just say my custom component, my custom service. Let's rename this my custom service. All right, and what would I place it at? Z components, and I'll place it at SLF for J. Then I'll actually implement command line runner, also command line runner. All right, then let's implement this method, and I'm going to say log.info, my custom service is running, and I'm going to place it Z component. Components. My custom service is running. So I'm going to just add some flag, some extra pizzazz, just to ensure that we see it on time. So check this out, guys. Let's stop this. Let's run this again and see what would happen. Boom. Can you see? Z component, my custom service is running. So this is how you create your own service. This is your own component. Because I've seen some organizations, I've worked in some organizations, for some reason they don't like service, they don't like components, they don't like repository. They created something from there. They created something. I don't want to mention the company. They just have the project, and the name of the project, let's say the name of the project is AB. You just see they created a company called AB Component, and that is what they use everywhere, man. And you don't have, it doesn't even have to carry the name component. They just call it an AB Finder, AB something. Give it a very quirky name, so to say. And apparently it works. This is basically how they created it. Nothing more than this. This is how it works, guys. See, it's quite straightforward. It's springed up beautiful. So you could customize this in several ways that you want, and you will still have the exact same result. Now, before we go, let's check in this code. And before I push it in, let me clear this. I'm going to show you guys something awesome. For those who do not know, I know some do. For those who do not know how to basically bring it, remember we created this. I'm yet to actually add it in. So I'm going to copy this, which is this part here. So I'm going to copy this issue. Let me just refresh it. So I've refreshed it. Now just watch something. I'm going to keep this here. I'm going to say GCA. GCA is okay, so it's just my shortcut. I basically just created an alias, right? Create an alias and use it to be git commit -am. Then I place this here. Now I'm going to say closes. So I'll just say, I'll go back here. I'll say explored, because we've explored, right? Explored a Spring Boot application and component scanning. Hence, I'm going to be closing this guy. So I'll say comma closes this guy. Now watch this. If I do this, I save this, right? So I need to push, right? The next thing is for me to push. So I'm going to do something quite unique. I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to bring this here. I'm going to refresh. And I'm going to git push. When I do git push, see what would happen. Git push, just watch this. And if you check this out, this automatically closes. Because there's a listener there that just knows exactly, oh, so this guy is, so it basically just happened because I did closes. So when you use closes and the ID tag you have here, if you create an issue and you do closes with the ID tag, it automatically closes this. Is that not amazing, right? So, with that, I'm sure you guys now have good comprehensive knowledge on Spring Boot application, component scanning, where all these different annotations are coming from as if they're magic. They're not. They're just all aliases for their components. And they're discoverable, right? Once you create your own custom component, place that component in there and Spring will find it automatically. Simply, that is how it works, okay? With that being said, I'm going to see you guys in the next video.